Hello everyone, this is Dr. Achal and I welcome you all in our subject module titled as Services Marketing. So, in our previous discourse, we have dealt with the characteristic of the intangibility, how the marketers are trying to deal this important characteristic of intangibility and what are the important strategies that can be pursued by the service provider in order to meet out the problem of intangibility. Now in today's discussion, we have dealt with a more elaborate concept of making and drafting out the strategies of meeting out the problem of inventory, because we know that in case of the services arena, the services they are being produced and consumed at the same point of action. Simultaneously it is being produced and consumed for effective delivery process. In our previous discourse, in the earlier discussion, we have dealt with that the service provider and the marketer, they are just trying to frame out the strategies, keeping into consonance this perishability factor to be more being pronounced with the help of certain kind of evidences that are good enough in terms of meeting out the expectations of the target audience, and that are also in consonance with giving them a greater appeal to the service organization so as to accurately forecast out the the demand that is being placed by the customers. In our previous discussion, we have also dealt with the fact that as the services they are perishable, so there can be three situations wherein either the service provider are trying to they are trying to reach out to the customers and the consumers for proper delivery. There can be a situation in which the customer themselves they are reaching out to the service organization for assimilation of the services. There can be an instance wherein the customers they are at an arm's length. So these three kind of situations are being seen in case of the services arena, and proper delivery of the services, it is very much being important enough that both the parties, that is the producer and the consumers, they should be there for proper disposition and for proper assimilation of the offerings. Now in today's discussion, we will be involving a more elaborate concept of dealing out this characteristic of the perishability, how maybe there can be a situation in which the demand is more enough as compared to the supply. There can be a situation in which the supply is more as compared to the demand. Earlier also we have said that there can be a situation in which the customers are placing out in a greater demand for certain offerings, but the organization is not efficient enough to meet out those demand that is being placed because of the huge rush or because of the peak demand that is being placed by the customers. So in order to mitigate out, or in order to just minimize out with this particular problem, the marketers are coming out with an optimized solution wherein they are offering discounts and rebates so that the customers may themselves be they will be motivating enough to just curtail out their consumption during the peak hours, and in order to avail out the discount and the rebate factor, they will be moving in for the they will be moving in for the early peak hours, so that they can be availing out the consumption of the pure services or the offerings at a discounted rate. So this is a kind of a strategy that we have discussed in our previous discourse. So in today's discussion, we will be moving out with a more elaborate concept of meeting out or drafting out the strategies to deal out with the inventory, that is in the perishability factor and the characteristics of the services. So moving on with the slide. Now this slide says that the variations in demand in relation to the capacity. We know that it is within the forces and within the interaction of the demand and the supply that the prices of the commodities they are being determined, and they are the very important variables and the factors to be seen in case of the marketing discipline, or to be seen in case of the competitive scenario, that is the demand and the supply factor of the offerings. And here, as it is being written here in the slide, the slide here it is self-explanatory. It gives you the graphical portrayal, the graphical representation is being done here, which represents the variations in the demand that is being placed by the customers in relation to the capacity which the service organizations are trying to float out in the market area, or which the organization is holding up. Now it is being written here that the marketers they are facing four possible scenarios in consonance with the demand and the capacity in a fixed capacity service organization. Now, variations in demand relative to capacity. There can be a situation, this graphical representation shows you the fact that there can be a situation in which the capacity is being utilized. Now, in this particular slide, we are experiencing that this particular graphical portrayal, it is representing 4 of the possible situations, and this possible situation is being expected in terms of the varying demand that is being placed by the customers in relation to the capacity which the organization is holding on. Now, it says that the marketers, they are facing 4 of the possible scenarios in relation to the demand and the capacity, which is of fixed capacity with regard to the service organization. And in the graphical representation, we are witnessing the fact that there is a variation of the demand that is being placed by the customers in relation to the capacity or the supply which the organization is trying to float out in the competitive scenario. Now, this graphical representation is being taken from one of the source of the author, and here the source is being written C. Lovelock and Britz, the services, marketing, people, technology and the strategy. Now, this is a representation wherein we are witnessing that the capacity will be utilized if there is a maximum capacity, if there is a maximum availability of the resources in terms of meeting out the expectations of the target audience. The optimum capacity will be well balanced, that is, if the demand that is being given by the customers, that is being placed by the customers and the consumers, which are in relation to the supply of the service provider, then there will be a situation in which the optimum capacity will be faced. Similarly, and the capacity, that is the resources of the organization, will be utilized in a greater best possible way. Now, in the lower portion of the figure, it gives you the fact that here the resources of the organization, they are not being utilized in the best possible way, and that will lead towards the lower utilization of the services or the lower utilization of the resources which the organization is holding. And we know that if the organization is not in a position to utilize out the resources at the best possible way, in an efficient and in a proper way, then its effectiveness cannot be gauged, and that will lead towards defaming out the services and the credibility of the service organization. Now, this is one of the part wherein if the utilization of the resources is not being made justified properly, that will give towards leading out to the bad signals in the competitive scenario. Similarly, there is a situation in which the excess capacity is being talked of. In the lower black figure, in the lower portion of the graph, it shows that with the time factor, when eventually with the passage of time, there can be a situation in which time cycle 2, it represents that the excess capacity is there. If the organization is holding out the availability of the scarce resources that is being put into alternative form, if they are having out the excess capacity, but that capacity is not properly being utilized, then that will automatically result in the wastage of the resources. Now, moving on to the upper portion of the graph, it says that the volume demanded, that is the demand being met or the demand being placed by the customers and the consumers, they are greater in demand, the demand is more as compared to the capacity which the service organization is holding on, then definitely there will be a situation in which the credibility of the service organization will be at a stake, and here the service manufacturer or the producer will not be in a position to come out with meeting out the demand and the expectations of the people and their target audience. So, in this situation is also deleterious for the health of the service organization and the firm, because here the business will be lost as the marketer is not in consonance with meeting out the expectations of the people, of the target audience, and the demand is more as compared to the capacity of the supply which they are trying to offer in the market area. Similarly, the fourth situation here, it is representing out, and it is being represented in the middle portion of the graph, which says that the demand is exceeding the optimum capacity, and there can be a situation in which if the demand is more as compared to the capacity and the availability of the resources which the organization is holding on, and the availability of the output or the production of the offerings, then definitely the demand is more, and even if after utilizing out your resources to the optimum way, at the optimum point, even then if the demand is more and you are trying to optimize out the availability of their resources at the saturation point, then the quality of the product or the quality of the offerings will tend to get decline in certain instances. And the third, in the third level, in the mid level of the graph, here it is being represented that this is in a position which gives you the picture, a rosy picture to talk of, that is an ideal use of the resources, and that ideal use of the resources in terms of the optimum capacity which the organization is holding in their organizational structure, in terms of the availability of the scarce resources, that is the 6 M's, in terms of the 6 M's, that is men, machine, material, money, method, market. And if the optimum capacity is being witnessed, if the production is and the supply is being balanced, then definitely that will lead towards optimizing, or that will lead out towards phasing out the situation of the optimum capacity of the available limited resources. So this is in a point, that is the ideal use of the resources that is being represented in the graphical portrayal, that is which gives you the fact of a rosy picture to talk of, that here the service organization is having out in a well balanced approach of using out their limited availability of the limited resources in the best possible way, in an efficient and an effective way, and coming out with a proper solution of meeting out within a good demand that is being made by the customers, by the target audience, and a well balanced approach is being talked of towards meeting out the demand and the supply, and the demand and the supply is being in consonance with this competitive scenario. Now this is a situation, earlier we have discussed out the 4 of the situations with the help of the graph. Now this particular slide gives you the one of the situation, that is if the situation of demand met by the demand that is being placed by the customer is exceeding out the capacity which the organization is holding out. Now this says that in this scenario the level of the demand is exceeding the available capacity of the organization. For example, it is being written here, and we are trying to help you out, we are trying to give you a more elaborative view of understanding this particular first situation, that is when the demand is more than as compared to the supply in the competitive scenario, then how we can understand this particular situation with the help of an example. Now it says that if a hotel with a room of 400 capacity during the seasonal peak may have a 500 guests wanting to stay. Now in this case, some guests will be going somewhere else, resulting in loss of business. The impact of such situation will be on the service quality. As for the customers staying there, the service may not match the promised service due to overtaxing of staff and the utilities or due to overcrowding. Now it is very imperative here that we have taken an example. Suppose if in a hotel is having an adequate capacity to adjust 400, they are having an adequate capacity to adjust the guest having a 400 capacity at its maximum, and because of the certain tourist inflow, and because of that particular tourist inflow, the influx of the more tourists is there, and because of the seasonal peak, out of 400 capacity which the hotel is expecting to have on, they are experiencing 500 guests who are willing enough to stay in their hotel or the premises. Then in that particular instances, it may so happen that it may be a situation in which some guest may be going out somewhere else, resulting in the loss of business. It may so happen that we are being able enough to accommodate only 400 people in our premises, and rest of the 400 people they have to just go somewhere else to accommodate. And if this backing out of the 400 people to a certain specified other hotel or the restaurant, that will create a defamation towards your brand, towards your credibility of the brand, and that will be a deleterious, that will resulting in a deleterious impact on the financial health, on the physical, towards the establishing the credibility of your hotel or your industry. And it is being written here that the impact of such situation will be on the quality of the service which the people are offering out to the customers, because the services may not be being expected, that is being promised enough. There may be situation there can be a situation in which we can experience that if we are very much being overburdened with the things, if we are very much being we are operating at a saturation point, there can be a situation in which the people who are trying to deliver out the services to the target audience, they will not be able to perform it with the best. There can be a situation in which that will result into overtaxing of the people or the staff who are being deployed in your organization because of the overcrowding situation. Now, this particular situation, this is in a second situation, and here we are experiencing the demand exceeding the optimum capacity. Now, in this scenario, the demand is exceeding the optimum capacity and no customer is being turned away. For example, we have taken the same example. The hotel with 400 rooms has staff to look after 350 rooms. The optimum utilization entertains 400 staff. In this case, all the customers may perceive a deterioration in the service quality due to the overuse of the facilities, crowding and overburdening of the staff beyond their capabilities to deliver a consistent quality. Now, this is a second situation in which the demand is exceeding the optimum capacity, and the demand is also there in the market area, but no of the customer is being turned away in another hotel and a restaurant. And we are saying that if the same hotel is having 400 rooms to accommodate, they have enough 400 rooms, has a staff to look after 350 rooms. The optimum utilization of the resources which they are having on, that is out of 400 rooms, they can diligently offer out their services to 350 people in their premises. Even then, operating at the optimum capacity of giving them the best service to 350 people or 350 guests, they are entertaining 400 guests. Now, in this particular instance, in the second instance, even then they are operating beyond their optimum capacity. Then operating beyond the optimum capacity may also result in a situation in which there will be an instance wherein the quality of the services delivery will not be up to the mark, and the people who are being authorized enough to create and proper deliver out the services, they will not be able enough to meet out with the expectations of the target audience, because they will be the same thing, they will be overtaxed and they will be just operating beyond their optimum capacity, and the consistent quality will not be delivered out to the target audience. Now, the third situation, the demand and supply, they are well balanced. Now, in this scenario, we are experiencing that there is an optimum capacity utilization, the demand and the supply, they are well being balanced. The staff and the facilities, they are properly utilized within the desired economic consequences. There is an ideal use rather than overuse and underuse of the staff and the facilities. The customers are experiencing the right rater, that is all being related with reliability, assurance, tangibility, empathy and responsiveness. Now, this is the third situation, is an ideal situation to talk of, that is the demand and the supply forces, they are well being balanced, and here in this third situation we are experiencing that there is an optimum utilization of the resources. There is not a situation in which we are experiencing that there is an overuse or underuse of the resources. There is a well balanced, the demand and the supply, they are in consonance with each other. The staff and the facilities, they are properly utilizing their available resources, they are putting on with their best, they are coming out with their best, and the best utilization of the resources are being justified in terms of its efficient utilization, and the effectiveness is also being talked of in terms of the proper delivery on time. So, there is not a situation, there is not a situation in which the overuse or the underuse of the resources are being talked of, and here the customers are experiencing out their the assimilation of the services in terms of the acronym, that is the rater. And the rater all is being talked of in the sense of the reliability with which they are being associated with a specific brand of visiting out in a hotel and a restaurant, the assurance which they have got out before booking out to your hotel, and the tangibility factor which they are experiencing in terms of the reviews, in terms of their star ratings, in terms of their physical evidences of their infrastructural facilities, the empathy and the responsiveness, all being associated within a psychographic element, the psychological element which the waiters, which the attendants and the staffs are giving them out to the target audience in terms of their resilience factor, in terms of their perseverance, in terms of their Empathy, it's a very good approach to talk of in the third situation, in which the demand and the supply situation both have been well balanced. Now this is in a situation, the fourth situation, wherein we are experiencing the excess demand, and in this situation the demand is below the optimum capacity, and the productive resources made available to meet out the optimum capacity level, that is the optimum human capital, equipment and the utilities are being underutilized. In this situation, the customer at the individual level may receive the excellent quality, but in some of the instances the customer may receive the excellent quality. In some of the situation, the customer may find that the experience is disappointing or have doubts about the viability of the service. The customer might think that he has chosen an inferior service provider. Now this is the last situation in which we can be able to face out a situation of the excess capacity. The demand is not up to that particular situation, and we as a service provider, we have produced out a greater supply of the offerings that is not in consonance, that is not in parity with the adequate demand being placed by the customers. So in this situation, it may so happen that the optimum utilization of the 6 M's are not being made available in the organization, that is the men, machine, material, money, method, market. The human capital may not be properly utilized, the equipment and the facilities that you are holding in your organization may not be properly utilized at the optimum point. It may so happen that the customers, they themselves have been in a perception to be talked of, in the sense of they have not selected in a good organization, they have not selected in a good service provider to assimilate out the service delivery process. There can be a situation in which the customer may also have a perception of underrating out the quality of the services which you are trying to propose out in the market area as an inferior one. So these are the 4 situations of meeting out that is being said to be acting whenever the forces of the demand and supply are being channelized in this competitive scenario. That is, there can be a situation in which the demand is more as compared to the supply. The converse can also happen. There can be a situation of the optimum level wherein the demand and the supply are well being balanced, and there can be a situation in which the excess capacity is being generated as compared to the optimum utilization of the resources. So with this, I am ending up my session here only, and in the next session we will be dealing out with another approach of meeting out the characteristic of the services arena, that is the variability factor, and how the service organization is trying to craft out their strategies to meet out this particular characteristic of the variability, that we will discuss in the next deliberation. So till then, stay safe and stay blessed. I hope you all have understood the concept of the strategies of the meeting out the perishability factor. Thank you all for joining.